Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. Author Michael Bland joins me to talk about his debut novel, The Price of Safety, set in a world where an advanced surveillance system means that no crime goes unsolved. But what have we given up to achieve this? It's a question Michael tackles through his character Dray Quintero, who now must battle that system to save his daughter. Welcome back, everyone, to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. My name is Max Bowen. I'm the host of the show, and my next guest, he is a founding member and the secretary of the Book Pod group of professional writers, but also he has a brand new book out released one day ago. I'm talking to author Michael Bland. Michael, welcome to the show, dude. It's great to have you here.
Max, thank you for having me.
So let us talk about the new book, The Price of Safety. Reading the description about it, this is so timely to come out right now with everything going on in the world, but everything also that happened prior to current events. You know, this book, one of the centerpieces is, of course, like a global surveillance network. I want to start with the world building. What it took, what went into creating the world of this book.
How I looked at this and what was kind of my motivation for doing this is seeing how technology we've allowed it into our lives in so many ways. You know, I have Alexa, just like everybody else. You know, I have a Siri on my phone, and I enjoyed having that as well as anybody does. My computer is able to say, "Oh, you're in this state now," and are you okay for me to tell everyone your location? No, not really, but thanks. Well, and an even bigger thing is, so my wife and I were planning a trip to Iceland. Ironically, it was going to be 3 weeks ago. Oops, timing. But the thing is, July, when we planned it last year, the first time we started talking about it, the next time we get onto Facebook, it's, hey, here are ads for Iceland. Really? Like they're not watching? I mean, or listening, right? So that's part of the thing is that all these things that are free, Facebook and Google and all those things, which are great, nothing is totally free. Right. Mm. And the way I looked at it is, okay, 30 years ago, where were we compared to where we are now? Okay. 30 years ago, I mean, grunge was just not even really barely starting. CDs were kind of all the rage. People still had cassette tapes. And now look where we are. And it's also accelerating all the time. Okay. Well, then what's it going to be like in another 30 years? How extreme, how interwoven? Because we've already gotten to the point, you leave your cell phone somewhere, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to get from point A to point B. You seen a map? Yeah. No. Where's Google Maps? Right. So you really kind of dig into that kind of. So that's what started.
Now, given the world that we live in, where like we're always being kind of monitored in some fashion by our phones, by cameras on stoplights, the banks, wherever. Do you ever get tempted to just like shuck it all and just like move to like the mountains and live in a cabin?
There is that temptation, absolutely, because
Right.
You do wonder what digital footprint are you leaving behind, and who's watching, and what are they doing? And the thing is, right now, it's all kind of in a way harmless. It's okay. You mentioned something that you want to go on a trip and it shows a Facebook ad, and you shop for a pair of shoes and then suddenly look, there's shoes all over ads, those kinds of things. Harmless. But when's it going to stop being harmless?
Exactly. It's harmless until it's not.
Right. And at what point is it too late to go back?
I would say your book actually is probably definitely is like the line in the sand. So to give people a little bit of context here, this book takes place in the year 2047. No crime goes unsolved, which sounds awesome, No wrongdoing goes unseen. I'm cool with that. Works for me, Safer world.
Right.
Until the main character, Dray Quintero, his daughter Raven commits a crime. And a pretty serious one, too. And now he's going to try and cover it up. That cannot be easy. So tell me a bit about Dray. What's his kind of role in this thing?
So twofold. One, he is actually part of the reason why we have this technology and why we have this interconnectedness. And he meant it in a very noble way. And what he did and why he did it, like most people, you act in ways that you think are best for you and usually for the people around you. He had very good intentions. However, then just like everything, just because you have good intentions doesn't mean it goes well. And that's where it starts down this rabbit hole.
Given that he made this, though, should it be easy for him to turn it all off? Okay, he made it so he can just,
Right.
tick it off and save his kid and, end of the story.
Right. Well, it's almost like the story of the person who did the first atomic bomb. Well, okay, just because you made it doesn't mean you can now unmake it. That's where part of the issue becomes. And the other aspect with that character is having at least a skill set to be able to try to fight back. Can't totally, and especially if you're making something that can almost watch you anywhere. One person by themselves is not, even if you know kind of how it works, you know the secret sauce behind the scenes, that doesn't mean that gives you a free pass. You just know how bad, what kind of trouble you're in.
Do you think people would be okay with this kind of world if the trade-off was that they had like perfect safety, that they wouldn't have to worry about getting mugged or the car getting broken into or what have you?
See, that was part of my thing with writing this, is I wanted to, one, make this world as believable as possible, that we could really get to this point. And because if it's not believable, everything else falls apart.
Sure.
But the other aspect is, yes, to a world that a lot of people, first of all, you're going to agree to have this implant put in your head. And there's very specific reasons why that people do it. Because again, people don't just act for no reason. They do things for a specific reason. So that was very in the forefront of my mind. And then with it is, like you said, some people will like this. That, you know what? I don't, just like nowadays, some people, I don't care whatever you're going to track on my, and my habits and what I do. I don't care. I don't have anything interested in anything anyway. And I'll just go and agree to any legalese, whatever. I don't care. And I'm just as guilty as virtually everybody else. I still just click OK and I move on because I like my iTunes and I like to be able to, Google everything. It's what it is. But you're right. Even in this world, even when they're exposed to the risk and what the depth of their loss of freedom, some people still go, all right, it's fine.
Comparing your book to the world that we live in now, how far apart are the two?
Okay, so current times, I think what I really try to do in making this world is make it as believable towards from where we are now to where it becomes. Okay, for example, talk about Google Glass and having some of that ability that you put these glasses on and you can access things and it's all right there. Or even just your cell phone. You're in your hand, you can access pretty much the world, almost everything there. Well, what's then the next logical step where you don't even need your hands, where then you don't even need the phone in your hand? So that's what I try to do the whole time is extrapolate to where it is all, where everything in it or virtually everything in it, you can go, okay, yeah, I can at least see that possibly getting. Now there are a couple things that may not be completely, you see it right now, but again, everything I tried to make it as realistic as possible.
What are some of the kinds of new tech that you had to invent for the story?
One of the things is dark matter. Dark matter is really interesting. I did a lot of research on this beforehand. And it's this, it takes a good portion of our universe. We know nothing about it, but yet we do see on great scales some of the effects that it has on our universe. Well, one of the things that happens is my main character, his company helps actually find it and harvest some of it and then use it. So that's one of the things that is in it and actually plays a part in the very first scene.
I swear, being a writer is the coolest job in the world. You get to spend weeks, if not months, just researching the most random stuff.
Oh, useless fonts of information. I've got all
you're
stuff.
Search history must be the most baffling thing. If the cops are ever looking at you, they'll be like, "What the hell's wrong with this guy? What's he looking at?"
Oh, I'm sure I'm on some strange website
You're right.
or tracking list of the search history is exactly what is he doing. So yeah.
Now, this being your first book, you have actually written a bunch before, mostly short stories. But jumping from the short story to the novel, what were some of the bigger challenges for you?
Actually, a couple things. One, I really liked the larger story arc, to be able to really develop characters, develop a full story. But then where I said the challenge is that I had to make this world, I had to make sure everything made sense. Because I don't know about you, but one of the worst things when you're reading a book, you're like, okay, this is good. And then there's some leap, some stretch of something, and you're like, oh, the author was just lazy, or where did they come up with that? Or, you didn't earn the event. You didn't earn it. And so I actually worked for over a year on just outlining this before I wrote a single word. And in fact, a couple times, luckily I did that because there's something as I'm going through, I realized that totally just destroys and makes everything kind of fall apart. So I had to make sure that all all this technology and the logic behind it and what works and why it works, that it all made sense for the whole story. Because as a reader, I hate where you have that leap that is not justified and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think they call that the writer's convenience.
I call it laziness. But
Ooh.
yes, exactly. Well,
No.
Hey.
I actually totally agree. I totally agree. I just hate it when you're like reading a book and like the character is challenged and they're up against the wall and all of a sudden they just like, Deus ex machina their way out of it. It's like, that didn't make any sense. What the crap? Why'd you do that?
Now, I do have some big scenes, and there's some, a couple points that someone might go, yeah, would that have? But you know what? I really try to make every single thing as believable as possible.
On this topic, how do you challenge your characters? How do you make it so that they're not totally in control of the situation, even when, especially in this case, they more or less laid the groundwork for the very thing that they're trying to fight?
Well, what I did was I made it so that they had the ability to at least know what was going on. For example, like Dray, he understands that there is this world that is very interconnected. However, I then challenged him by not making it, he can't avoid it. So then how do you act in that world, and how do you try to fight back when your adversary has the power of the entire government and all the resources that that entity controls?
Let's talk about foils here, okay? Kieran is his main adversary in the book. How do these two stack up? Is it like apples and oranges? Do they share any kind of common traits?
They both, in a way, they do have a little bit of a common trait in that they both care about protection, about protecting people. They go about it in different ways, and they both have different reasons for doing what they're doing. But there is a commonality in that. But then at the same time, they went about not only their job, but then themselves in different ways. Dray is really about family and about protecting his family. Kieran instead decided to allow his body to be modified, to be stronger, to be a protector in general.
Would you say Kieran is like a slave to the system, or is he just that passionate a believer in like law and order and justice that he allowed himself to become what he's become?
I think it's more he kind of drank the Kool-Aid.
Ooh.
He drank the Kool-Aid, and then with it though, he started to get a little bit of his own. Hey, look how powerful I am, and so started to kind of push the rules himself without even realizing that he's being a little rebellious himself. So that's another aspect that they are similar, because Dray is rebellious. Okay.
I want to go back a bit to the planning for this book. You mentioned that you spent a year outlining this. When the time came to actually write this thing, did you find the plan changing at all? Or did you have to like make yourself stay on track and do this thing the way you originally kind of laid out?
I've heard of some authors go, say, my character took me in another direction that I didn't plan. That's not so much, even though a couple of minor characters did say things and did a few minor things that did surprise me. However, keep in mind that doing it over a year, by the time I was writing, I had already done all those changes in my mind and in the story. So by the time I'm ready to write it, I'm now actually enjoying this adventure that I created. And also the other thing with this book that I really did, and it's kind of interesting because with this technology, is I know I'm competing for everybody's attention. You got your cell phone, you got the internet, got everything. If I don't keep your attention, I lose. You're going to put my book down, walk away.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Did it make it easier to write the book, given that you had everything just kind of laid out, or do you still have parts where you're like, how's this going to work? How's this scene going to happen? How are we going to kind of resolve the conflict?
Little bits, but really, like I said, it was so well. My actual outline was about 160 pages. I mean, I even had, parts of a scene, lines that I wrote, back description about backstory, some things that didn't make it in the book. But as a writer, you have to have that to really understand and make characters consistent and different and that kind of thing.
You could just publish that. The outline. It's like, done.
Yeah, I could have. Then people would be like, no, that's not as good.
So you mentioned about the struggle of keeping people's attention on your book, especially when they have so many distractions from so many other sources, which is a very good point, Ed. How do you do that? How do you write a book for the 21st century audience?
Well, one of the things, what I did not do maybe it'd be better to answer what I didn't do. I did not do very long soliloquies about the description about here's this garden and all the flowers and all the stones, and no one cares. Let's be honest. Unless you're actually a gardener, you don't probably care. And in that case, you're reading a gardening book. You're not reading my book. The other thing is very long backstories, as well as reactions to things. There are reactions. All the characters, they go through a gauntlet of, because of the events and because of what other people do to each other and the things that happen, all that. Of course, there are reactions and there's backstory, but I interspersed it throughout it. And I wove it all in together. So I try to avoid really at any point where the story stops. Because, again, I stop it to tell you now a backstory or something that happened or what their deep thoughts that they're totally going into for pages and pages. No, you're gonna put the book aside.
How long is this?
It is 333 pages.
All right, so fairly like average length for a book.
Yeah, it's average length. It's not huge. It's really almost right in the average size for a sci-fi book. Yep.
But given this, were you ever tempted to just do like a shorter book, like a novella, to keep it kind of even like smaller?
What's interesting is the story that I wrote, I made it as tight as possible. And that some authors will say, you go down to the actual individual word. Do you need this word? Do you need that word? I remember hearing that and I'm like, okay, that's a little anal. But no, you actually do get to that point where, do you need this word? Do you need this phrase? If so, keep it painfully. And if not, get rid of it and move on.
I know this world very well because in journalism we have a rule: if you can say it in 2 words, say it in 1.
Exactly. And if people if they don't notice what or your work, what you did, then you did it right. Hopefully the reader doesn't even notice what we're talking about right this second because they're just so gripped in the story and cruising right through it.
Given that this was your first novel and given the work that went into it, was it difficult to finally pull the trigger and say, okay, done, sent out, published?
So hard. It's so hard. You could always go back. And at least the one thing is when then my publisher had their editor go through it, luckily she found very, very little. And even I, going back through it again, I'm like, okay, I could fight over a word here or a word there, but then it's just, I've gone through enough. I've had it edited a couple times prior to getting my publisher, then they edit it again. So again, it's all in the name of the work so that when a reader reads it, all they're doing is enjoying the story.
Now, I know that when it comes to working with an editor, sometimes things can be a little difficult because they'll say, this has to go, this character has to go, and the writer's like, no, this is like my child. You can't do this to my child. Did you have any parts like that where they made a change that actually made sense, but you want to really keep it because this was like your baby?
Thank goodness, no. And I've heard horror stories. In fact, before I got my agent, I was at a event where there was a book. There were 6 different authors on the stage, and one of them said that she'd had a couple books published. Third one, her editor or publisher bought. The editor read through it and said, "Yeah, we need to start from scratch." And everyone in the room was, I mean, that's just, let's just throw it all away and start over. No.
And this was like the third in like a series.
It was a third book period.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a series, but it was just a standalone book, just like I guess her first 2. Luckily, mine not an issue. In fact, my publisher loved it, obviously enough to pick it up, and then my editor, minor stuff.
That's like a gift, I think.
I went out and bought a lottery ticket the next day because yes, I got. Let me tell you.
You should, man. Like because that kind of stuff, right, does not happen a lot. I've heard of writers having to lose, like I've heard them having to take out entire, like not even chapters, but like entire sections of the book, like fully quarters of the book. Characters dead, main characters dead.
Oh, absolutely, just done. Yeah, brutal.
So that's a good thing. Do you feel like the advanced planning helped to kind of avoid that?
Oh, definitely. Because if I had just written the original version that I kind of had in my head, it would have been worse. And even though it sounds crazy that it took me over a year of just editing, of outlining before I even started it, I know it would have been even longer and even more painful if I would have just gone ahead and written the original version. Now, that's just me, though. That's how my brain works. Other people might generate on a rough draft something that is actually pretty close to the final. I kind of hate them a little bit, but that's not me.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is not your full-time job. I know that you have a day job. How do you kind of balance out writing with work? Do you have like any kind of like structure with that?
No. When I'm in the thick of it, when I'm in the thick of writing, then I'll say, okay, this day and this weekend, I'm writing. That's all I'm doing. And I've missed a lot of events because I'm just at my computer writing. But it's what I choose, it's what I love.
Exactly. Hey, it's like your world, basically.
Yeah, and actually I can feel, it's weird, I feel my blood pressure actually decreasing when I'm writing. Even though it's hard, even though there are times I'm struggling over this and, all that, but I love it.
Yeah. Why will this chapter work? What the crap?
What was I thinking? Wait a minute, why not this? I need to do that. Yeah. Or write them into some sort of corner, and I'm like, I don't know how to save these people. What do I do?
Yeah, kill them off, whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, it's bad.
Dead. But this is not your only book, sir. You have 2 more that you're working on, so this is going to be like a trilogy of stories. Yes. Where are you in terms of part 2?
So part 2, shockingly, I know this will shock you, I've outlined it.
No.
I know, right? Shocking. Where did that come from? And it's actually about 185-page outline. I know. I don't know. My wife just shakes her head and just lets me do my own thing. And actually, I've started writing the rough draft. I'm about a quarter of the way with the rough draft. Really excited because I got some really good stuff in this. Yeah.
Now, do you give yourself a deadline?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, if this was my full-time job, yes.
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah.
But since the first book just came out yesterday, I don't necessarily have a deadline per se.
Mm-hmm.
My publisher, they have the option for the next 2. They don't have set deadlines. So okay.
That's really good. I feel like deadlines are the worst thing for a writer to have. I mean, on the one hand, it's good to keep yourself incentivized. Incentivized to get it done by a certain date. But on the other hand, that can kill the story because you're so pushy to get that done by like so and so date. You just don't do what you want to do. Exactly.
Yes. Or like a story that's going well, and then the ending dies because you rushed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look, my thought is this book is going to be around for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be a stand-up.
Exactly. You want to love it. You want to love it.
Exactly.
You don't want to look back and say, "Oh yeah, that's got my name on it." Crap.
I know. We're like, yeah, can we ignore that? Yeah. No.
Yeah. Can you give us a little hint as to what happens in book 2, but no spoilers, please. No spoilers.
Well, okay, so the end of the first book, and no spoilers at all.
Yep.
This is the way I've described it to a couple friends, is, like the movie The Matrix, how you had a beginning, middle, and end. It was this great end, and then at the very end, Neo is in the phone book and goes, I don't know what's going to happen. He's now the one, right? He's now made that level. And then this movie ends. It's like, well, then what happens? So, right? So you sit there, you're like, well, that was really cool, but, well, shoot, now what, right? Well, that to me was this book. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And originally, when I was first playing the book, I didn't plan on a trilogy, but it was, as more as I went through kind of outlining the first book, I started to see how this is a bigger story than just one book. And so the second book starts about a month after the end of the first one. The ramifications of what happens and how Dray is now even in bigger, and Dray and some of the characters from the first book, how it's now even deeper, bigger, rolling from there.
I like it. I like it.
I'm so excited for it.
But it sounds like this wasn't originally planned. It was going to be like a one-off.
Originally, it was just going to be a one-off.
Yeah.
But when you're talking earlier about the world building, the world got to be naturally, and it was the best for me. The best side of it was I never forced it. It was never like I forced it. I need to create this extra thing to make this world interesting. No, it just organically grew into this huge world that is very easy to then build on.
Lessons from writing the first book that you can apply to the second and third ones.
Well, I would say try not to outline as much, but I want that. True.
Whoops. Nope.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really has helped is I already have that underlying logic and how the world works. So by doing that, now I can play within that world of the logic and what works and what doesn't. And with it is the then relationships within it. Because one of the big things for Price of Safety, one of the things I'm most proud of, is that even though this is a sci-fi book, family is the center of it.
Hmm.
What drives it is Dray and his family. He wants to protect his family in this world that he can't hide them. And I really thought that juxtaposition was really interesting, and what really drives the book. And so it's that those relationships between him, his family, other characters in the book. That's so because a lot of sci-fi books, I'm not bashing any sci-fi books, but I've just seen that a lot of them are almost more an individual person, or maybe one main character and a secondary character. It doesn't seem to be like a family or a network or anything like that. And there's going to still be family in the future. There's still going to be relationships and friends and brothers and sisters and all that stuff. And I wanted to have that as part of that world, because I think that also makes it more realistic.
Okay. I apologize if this question is a little too personal, but I am kind of curious. Are you a parent?
No.
So what was it like getting into the mind of being a dad? Did you talk to other parents to kind of get their take on things?
Exactly. Talked with really good friends who have their own kids, what they fear, what drives them, what is in their head as they're doing, when they're away from the family, if it's in a scenario where they could be threatened, what is their reaction? That kind of thing. Absolutely. And as a writer, you do a lot of research, and so you kind of pick, especially your friends' brains, and whether they really want you to or not.
I'm curious, is the character Raven based at all on any of your friends' kids?
No. Well, it's indirectly someone, but I'm not going to say
who. They'll find out when they read it.
Right. And then they come up to me like, seriously? I'm like, no, it's all good. It's all good. Don't worry.
Oh my God. Now, given what's going on right now, obviously you doing any kind of book signing is out of the question. Any cons or festivals are scrapped for now. But are there any kinds of events you're eyeing for the future that you think might be a good fit for you and your book?
Well, what I was hoping, obviously, like Denver Comic Con. I'm in Denver, so that would have been fantastic. I did get part of LA Book Festival. I have a booth there. Now it's been postponed, so it'll be October 3rd and 4th. So I'll be at the book festival.
Nice.
For that. And by then, I have a feeling everyone's going to be sick of being at home and will want to be out and about. So it might be actually a great event. And then I'm going to try to do some other events, Chicago, where I moved here from, and those kinds of things. So yeah, definitely going to try to do more. And then I'm also thinking about maybe doing I'm planning to do a live event where maybe Facebook Live, maybe even read a chapter a night for a few nights, that kind of thing, and do that and then answer people's questions.
Hey, dude, I'm down with that. That sounds like fun. Actually, that's become kind of a more common thing. Prior to all this stuff, other writers were doing that. They were doing virtual book release parties because they didn't have the money or what have you to actually do something major. So they would just be chilling at home, put it out there to Instagram or Facebook, and just do what you're doing. They'll do readings, they'll answer questions, they'll do book unveilings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to definitely try to expand in that ways, especially with everyone being home. More and more doing more events online and that kind of thing. So definitely want to try to just really kind of get the name out there and connect with readers. And I can't wait to hear people's reactions. I mean, knock on wood, been getting some good reviews so far. And so definitely want to keep, when I do that.
Is it hard to read a review when you get that notification? Your book was reviewed by so-and-so. Is it kind of oh man, what they say, I hope it's nice.
Well, of course. I mean, like you said, it's your baby, right? You know, so it's special and shiny, and you've worked out so hard to make it as great of a story. But I also understand not everyone's going to like it. If you only get 5-star reviews, you've maybe paid someone. I don't know, But no, look. I know that and I didn't write it for everyone to like, but I did write it to. Really, that both men and women would enjoy. I mean, sci-fi is usually a little more male-dominated, field. More people generally, but there are also a lot of women that love sci-fi, and I wanted to make this really not male or female, just simply that it's more accessible to everybody. Things you can relate to. I've read some sci-fi books that talks about the lasers, this, and the alien, that, and all this stuff. And while in a way that's cool, in a way also can I relate to any of this? And I really wanted this book to be relatable.
Mm-hmm. I think it's impossible to write a book for everyone. It's not.
True.
It's not an option. I mean, there are people who think Stephen King's a hack. Right. I'm not one of them. I think he's a great writer,
Correct.
but there are folks who don't like his work. So I think you got to write a book that's kind of true to you, You can't just cater to the market and what's trending.
You absolutely can. You will fail miserably. And at the end of the day, I wrote something that I love. I would pick it up and read it. You know, maybe not for quite a while because I've lived it for quite a while, but it's like that. You know, and I love the story and I love the characters in it, and that's what drives it.
Let's talk movies, because I read on your site that you were selected by Columbia Pictures to pitch one of your stories for consideration.
Yes.
Give us more information about that, please.
So I wrote a book called Lawyers Can't Fly, which is a humorous take on superheroes, where a young guy gets tricked into becoming their lawyer because they get tired of getting sued every time they save the planet, cause property damage, and he doesn't want to do it because it's career suicide. And then they trick him into becoming the lawyer. Life gets turned upside down. He becomes their only hope for survival. So I wrote this book, very proud of it, but it's obviously, you know, kind of a big niche. But anyway, there was, have you heard of Wizard World Fest?
Yes.
It's kind of like Comic-Con, right? So they had a arrangement with Columbia Pictures that there were 3 cities, Portland, Oregon, Columbus, Ohio, and Philadelphia. And if you're an attendee, you could apply online for a chance to pitch to Columbia Pictures a story idea. So it was kind of interesting. My sister sent that link to me, and she lives in Columbus. And so on a lark, okay, you know, give a 1-sentence what it's about, 200-word description, name, address, boom, email. It literally took me like 30 seconds to do because I had all that. Hit send, didn't think anything more of it. 2 weeks later, sitting on the bed, talking to my wife, happen to pull up email, and I'm like, we need to go to Columbus. She's like, what?
Great opener.
Yeah. I said, Saturday I have to pitch my story to Columbia Pictures.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got selected. So it was, I called my sister. I'm like, so I hope you have no plans this weekend because we're staying at your place. So we flew in late Friday night. Saturday, we go to the convention center. And what's funny was you have, of course, Comic-Con and people dressed up in various characters, which is great and fun. And then next door was some religious something or other, very buttoned up. I'm like, oh boy, I could write a story about this. But,
yes, you could.
Right? Oh my God, you could really do it. So anyway, I realized that I was only one of 16 people that were selected to even pitch. One of the guys is a full-time writer for Second City, came down from Chicago for it. A couple others had their books published and that were pitching all this stuff. So you had 5 minutes, and I went in there and I set my alarm or my timer, my watch, so I know that I was just over 7 minutes. I don't think I've ever talked faster in my life. These two younger women, they're, you know, very, very nice. You know, they were representatives of Columbia Pictures. And the good news is they laughed when I said something funny. They were leaning forward. They were saying, it really had a lot of interest in the story. And at the end of it though, they're like, great, we'll be in touch. I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And then the next thing I know is a week later, I get a email saying, yes, we'd like to get a copy of your full manuscript and send it here. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So what happened next? Come on.
I haven't heard.
Oh, my God. I hope they...
So I did try to reach out again, that same email, saying, so, you know, just curious, whatever happened. And
yeah.
No response. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
with movies, you know, it's not just a publisher. It would be a director and a talent and, you know, a production company and all that stuff. So I don't know. It could happen any day or never. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it was a great experience.
That's so cool, man. And and that happens a lot. You know, like sometimes a book will get like optioned for a film, and all that really means is that they're interested. It doesn't mean anything more than that, frankly.
Sure.
So and it can sit on some director's desk for like a few years and say, "Huh, this is neat. Where'd this come from?"
Right. Yeah, this is a random thing. Yeah, they pick it up, and then the next thing you know, there it goes.
It's a cool idea, actually. It's a cool idea. I actually picture Ryan Reynolds being the lawyer.
That would be perfect.
Because he's got that mix of like knows what he's doing and has no clue what he's doing.
Exactly, and that's pretty much the main character. Yeah, Ryan Reynolds would be perfect.
I can definitely see that. Let's play hypothetically here. Let's say The Price of Safety gets made into a movie, and you are advised to work on this thing as a consultant. Okay. Who would you want cast for the characters?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know, what's funny is I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I could see like a Tom Cruise, a little older,
Yep.
late 40s, early 50s, that is intelligent, but you could see him then doing some of the physical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I could see along those lines. For Raven, I could see Anna. I forget how you pronounce her name. She's actually
Anna Paquin.
Yeah, Anna Paquin could be a good one.
Solid choice.
She could be good in this role. So it could be really interesting. But what I like is that I try to make it just as broad. And in fact, like the cover, you don't see their faces because I want the reader to be able to project for themselves who these people are.
Nice. Kieran, who do you think would be a good Kieran? Because I got a couple ideas.
Who would you think?
I would say, but the guy who's the main character in like Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen.
Oh yeah, Gerard Butler.
That's it, Gerard Butler. Yeah. I can because he's got that.
Also, yeah, he could do that absolutely. Also, shoot, the guy he was on True Blood, the tall blonde guy.
Never watched it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Too many shows, man. Too many shows.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but he could be great.
Nice.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh, yes. Solid choice, man. Solid choice. Yeah. This is a fun game, isn't it? The what ifs, right?
Well, you could start really having a drinking game and going, well, what about this person? What about that person? Yeah, you're great.
It's a rough drinking game, sir.
Yeah.
All right. To wrap this up, I want to ask you about a book pod. So this is something that you helped to find. It's an invite only online group of professional writers. You also do the newsletter, in which you feature some of the different members. How does this whole thing get started?
It started through a friend of mine, Jen Brody. She started out because there was another group that she knew of that's more of an association of like journalists and short story writers and that kind of stuff. And so wanted to create one that was really more just focused on fiction and primarily book writing, but not just that, because we've got award-winning documentary filmmaker. We've got editors. We've got this woman that is a great. She does a lot of the audiobooks. We've got a huge range of talent, which is fantastic. And what's great is we support each other. We also are a great resource for each other. If, hey, I've got this contract, someone's wanting to do some contract work, and do you have an example of a contract or something, and what would be rates to charge, or, hey, I want beta readers for my book, or, that kind of thing. In fact, a friend of mine's on the pod, Robert Kerbeck, and he wrote a short story that one of the other book pod members turned into a feature film, and they've won some awards.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
That's a good network.
Yeah, it's a great network.
How do you find new members where the whole thing is invite only?
It's through other people that we know. A lot of them through Jen and through Robert and through others who really have connections in the industry. I mean, Jen she's a multiple award-winning trilogy writer, and she worked for New Line Cinema, and she has right now a 5-book deal, and so she's a lot of connections. Her and a bunch of others, and I'm blanking on all the things that they have won and they do, and it's insane. I'm honored to be part of the group.
It definitely sounds like a who's who, basically.
It's great. And then every month I do the newsletter where my super obnoxious sense of humor comes out. And at first I wasn't sure how their reaction would be, but they love it. And in fact, indirectly through the pod is where I got the connection with my publisher. Because Adam Rock is this great guy. He's got over 6 books published and TV stuff and all this. And when I was talking to him one time and he mentioned, how's the book, what's going on literary wise? And I said, I got my book ready to go, send out letters to literary agents. Long story short, he made the introduction for me.
Oh, damn, dude. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Fantastic. And he's like, I can't guarantee anything. And of course, the publisher made their own decision. But once she got the manuscript, 4 days later, she gave me the contract.
It definitely helps. It definitely helps to have like a network to at least like bounce things off of, because you never know who can help you with like editing a book or doing an audio book or introducing to a publisher. It's
absolutely. And even if none of that, even just simply that you're all kind of in the same boat in terms of trying to make something that would resonate with others. And that's what, a lot of us want to do, is just to be able to resonate with each other and make something that is, in a way, beautiful in our own way.
Mm-hmm. Michael, it has been so cool talking to you. I cannot wait to check the book out. And folks, in the meantime, if you want to find out more about this guy, it is mcbland.com. Go there, check his book out. The art's amazing. The sites are looking really cool. And definitely, man, book 2.
Yes.
Looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Max, thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome.
This is Angelina Singer, author of the Upper World series, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout, the best podcast for independent artists.
Well, folks, that brings this show to a close. Big thanks to Michael Bland for joining me, and you, the listeners, for tuning in each and every week. Listen to the show on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. Follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max, or check out citywideblackout.blogspot.com. As always, keep those ears open.